Welcome to my 2 cents. This is going to be something different. Tonight it's I got a topic of one famous person versus another famous person and what I think of their opinions. It will not always be like that. My 2 cents is just that. You're going to get my 2 cents worth of what I think. Um, I write about it, I talk about it, I discuss it. Planning for your future. It's something we never discuss. It's more taboo than religion and politics when it comes to what we teach our children. We'd rather talk to people about politics and religion versus our personal finance. What is personal finance? How do we accumulate wealth? Everybody wants to be rich, but what's the definition of rich? Everybody throws a number out there, $1 million. Well, what if you had $1 million? How would it change your life? I built a business and it does very well and I do okay. But Lori and I have no real savings. I don't hide that. There's no $1 million nest egg that Lori and I can fall back on. If we were to go belly up tomorrow, we'd be in trouble. We'd be out there pounding the pavement, getting a job. To me, it's a little bit scary. Now, listen, I may be making it sound worse than what it is. My wife has a nice pension from a job where she taught for 25 years. I have the ability to sell just about anything I would need to sell. Even if I had to go door to door, I could make a living, and probably a pretty good living. We both have put a lot of money into Social Security. Hopefully we get it out. Hopefully, 2 Social Securities. We got Lori's pension. I'm now learning more about personal finance. But, I want to talk about these two guys, because I know there are diehard. Dave is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he is the Messiah, and Dave is not a god. Let's make that crystal clear. I don't believe he is God. I believe he has a very strong faith. I believe he is a man of God, and I believe he is a man of his word. Robert Kiyosaki, I don't know. I had to watch his name a lot of times, and if you listen to him, he pronounces it there's a very unique way he pronounces his name. It's kind of like me with my last name. I say Chartier. I have a very strong pronunciation of my last name. These two guys are not in it to make your life better. Let's call a spade a spade. These two guys are gurus. They are in it for the income. And the dog's making a lot of noise. If you're wondering why I'm turning around looking, the dog is kind of breathing funny, and I'm not. I'm just trying to make sure she's okay. Sorry about that, guys. That's my wife's dog, and it's like the world to her. I want to make sure she's all right. She was breathing a little bit funny. So these two guys talk about the same thing. They almost talk about the same thing the same way. There's only one thing between them that kind of separates them. They sell their information to 2 segments of the same market. These guys are very similar. And as I've gotten to read about them and learn about them and learn about their methodology and their ideas. They're like the left and the right in politics right now. They're like the Democrats and the Republicans. They're just, although there's one little thing that separates them, they drive a huge wedge in between all the information. Now, Dave Ramsey is for the everyday person like me. Dave Ramsey's more about an uneducated person. And when I say uneducated, I mean not a college graduate, just an everyday person. That's more the type of person he targets. Robert Kiyosaki is more aligned with the more educated. If you look at the two programs and actually took a little bit from each of them, you'd have an amazing, for me at 53 years old, I feel like I have a pretty good handle on my personal finances by taking a little bit of each of them. Now, you have to understand what I'm looking at. I'm looking at Dave Ramsey, who says pay off all your debt. But let's go through his steps. Baby step number 1 says save $1,000. Baby step number 2 says pay off all your debt. He actually has a lot of information about baby step number 2. How do you snowball it? How do you do this? How do you do that? Baby step 3 says finish off your emergency fund. 4, 5, and 6, college, house, and retirement. 7 is give it away. Live life. I forget his saying. Live life like nobody else. Live and give like nobody else, or something similar to that. I am not beating up on Dave Ramsey. So if you're a Dave Ramsey fan, don't think I'm beating up on him. What I want you to see is that he teaches about what Robert Kiyosaki doesn't teach. Dave teaches mainly, if you really listen closely, Dave Ramsey teaches mainly about reducing your expenses and your liabilities. And if you don't know the difference between an asset and a liability, which is a big part of Robert Kiyosaki's thing, and it's, when you reach baby step number 3 in Dave's program, you're kind of on your own. He says save 3 to 6 months income where you feel comfortable. Step 4 is invest in your retirement. 15% of your income in retirement. Ask him directly where you should invest, and he will not give you any advice whatsoever. He refers you to somebody that gives him a kickback because you drop his name. It's a system that he has. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not beating him up. Please don't think that. But when I used Dave Ramsey's system, I felt broke when I got done baby step 2. And the reason I felt broke was I pushed and pushed and pushed to get the debt paid off. It got paid off, and I went, okay, now I got to save for my emergency fund. How much should I save? 3 to 6 months. Okay, is it 3 months or 6 months? Why do some people need 6 months, and why do some people need 3 months? What tools do you offer to do that? There's not a whole lot. Now, don't think that because I'm saying all this, that when I get to Robert Kiyosaki, I'm going to paint this big, beautiful picture, because I don't think that either. Now, you got Dave Ramsey that teaches reduce your liabilities. Here's how you reduce your liabilities. Here's how you reduce your expenses, how you start to save money. These are all great things. When you start to look at Robert Kiyosaki, on the other hand, Robert says reduce your expenses and liabilities. There is no information. He just assumes that you know what you have to do to reduce your expenses and liabilities, and that you should invest and pay yourself first. If you look at Dave Ramsey brings you a plan so that you can start investing and building your wealth. He doesn't really give you step by step to do these things. Robert Kiyosaki is looking for the people that understand that you should reduce your liabilities, live below your expenses, that want to build wealth. Now, Robert Kiyosaki does it through real estate. He believes in no money down and leveraged and based on cash flow and all that. I don't disagree that there can be good debt. It's not really debt, it's leverage. You use leverage to grow business. You use leverage to do things. Debt, when Dave Ramsey talks about all debt's bad, he's talking about car loans. He's talking about, even in business, car loans aren't the smartest thing. Sure, you get a tax break, but you never get enough of a tax break to pay for the car. You save a few dollars in taxes. He's talking about raw consumer debt, where you put a credit card down and you buy something you don't have the money to pay for. I'm not going to discuss the credit card game. So what I'm learning about these two guys are, one, they sell information. Dave Ramsey wants you to buy his books. And I'm not saying he has a bad system, because I put out a video about how I felt broke, and I got all kinds of people that did not listen to what I said that left me all kinds of negative comments about how bad I was and how it was all my fault that I felt broke. And I'm sorry, it was Dave Ramsey's fault that I felt broke. He showed me how to pay off debt. I don't agree with his way. I mean, once I understood that I needed the debt to be paid off so that I could, and the difference between consumer debt and bad debt, and I started to understand financing a bit, his method just would cost me a lot of money in interest. I attacked the highest interest with 0% credit cards. I did not snowball like he says to do. Lori and I did not eat rice and beans. I was entitled to have a steak when I wanted a frickin' steak. And if Dave Ramsey didn't like it, he could eat the rice and beans. And that's how I felt about it. I do understand his program. I think it is a good program, especially for somebody like my daughter. I feel bad that I didn't get to teach my daughter about finances. Now, she has a new baby and she's struggling. And part of it is I feel responsible because she's struggling, because I never taught her how to budget, how to spend money, how to do things properly in her life. So the first thing I did was say, listen, you got to get this guy Dave Ramsey, and you got to listen to him, and you really need to start following the baby steps. If she puts $1,000 in her emergency fund and she starts paying off her debt, I will help her with the investment part of it. I'm starting to learn about investing. I'm looking at Vanguard with very low fees in, I think they're called ETFs. I always want to call them EFTs. But an EFT is an electronic fund transfer. I think these are ETFs. They're based on the stock market. You can look them up on Vanguard. I'm looking at the S&P 500 one, which seems to be pretty solid. But Robert Kiyosaki assumes that everything that Dave Ramsey teaches, because if you really look at Dave Ramsey, it's baby steps 1, 2, and 3. Robert Kiyosaki says, if you do that, you'll always be poor. And he's right. If you spend all the time, if you buy fancy cars and do all these things, and your liabilities are more than your assets, you will always be poor. He doesn't explain to you how to reduce your liabilities. His whole theory is okay, if your liabilities are $2,000 and you only have $1,800 coming in, you need to figure out how to bring in $2,200 in assets a month. You need to he talks about increasing your income to offset any liabilities that you're paying for. If you want a new car, go buy a new car, but make sure that you have enough income to make those payments. I don't fully agree with that. I kind of lean more towards the Dave Ramsey. Let's keep it realistic. First of all, I'm 53, so I need to, I really need to think about securing my future. Now, guys, I did not always live the healthy life that I live now. And I don't live that healthy now. Okay? I'm way overweight. I eat the wrong foods, but I'm not out there drinking and drugging. Well, I didn't really do much drugs, but I'm not out there drinking and doing the things to my body that were just totally out of the question. I see your question over there, and I will get to it. But I just want to get this out there. These two guys, other than the debt, basically say the same thing. Lower your expenses, lower how much you spend, lower your outgoing money, start saving, and invest in your future. Dave Ramsey suggests you get with one of his professionals to invest, so that you can pay him 10% of your investment, so that they can, same old politics thing, man. You got to grease some wheels. You gotta pay along the way, so everybody gets a little cut. Dave Ramsey's building a $50 million building, cash. So he says. I would like to challenge that, but there's no way to challenge it. He says that there are no credit cards involved whatsoever. I don't know many. There's a lot of places that say, oh, wait a minute, we take credit cards. There are credit card games that you can play. I use them in my business, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. American Express, Plum Card, I get 2% of every dollar I spend. So for every dollar I spend, it costs me 98 cents. I'm making 2 cents for every dollar I spend. In my business, I spend tens of thousands of dollars a month. And I get 2% of that as cash back for just using their card and paying it at the end of the month. I never get interest. Sure, I do have a fee, but let me tell you something. The cash back 1 month is way more than the fee for the year. I average somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000 cash back. So I disagree with Dave about the credit card things. I do agree with him about having 20% to put down on a house, and why you have to have 20% to put down on a house, why you need to pay off all your debt before you start really saving money. I wish I would have saved, even if it was only a couple $100 more a month while I was paying off all that debt, even if it would have taken me 2 or 3 more months to pay off that debt, so that when I got done, I was already well into my nest egg, that rainy day fund, that 3 to 6 month fund that I still don't know if I should have 3 or 6 months or 4 months or 4 3/4 months savings for. Do I need 6 months of savings or 3 months of savings? He said, I'll know. I really don't know. In his book, it basically says you'll know how much you need. Robert Kiyosaki is all about leveraging good debt to build wealth. I am too old to risk leveraging everything to build wealth. I leveraged everything when I started this company. I am now finally getting it all paid off. I am not going to turn around and leverage it again, according to Robert Kiyosaki. But I wanted to show you that these two guys are really very, very, very similar in what they talk about. They both talk about reducing how much money you spend every month and how much you save and put into assets which will accumulate wealth for your future. So I got a couple questions. Let me look at them here. I've read or listened to Dave Ramsey since the mid 1990s. When he first started in Nashville, his entire demeanor has changed, and not for the better. He's abrasive and often abusive to his callers. Yeah, he does get very. I really hate that. Are you stupid? Are you dumb? Do you hear what I'm saying? He's very degrading, and I know a lot of people think that I can be like that, but I try not to be. It's not what I'm thinking in here. It is my personality. I am allowed, and I can understand that from him too. But the words he chooses, I don't call anybody stupid. First of all, my wife would hit me with a freaking 2x4. She was a special education teacher, so the stupid thing and the retard. They're very negative words around my wife. She would not be happy to hear something like that come out of my mouth. Just to give you an idea. Stupid question. There we go. Stupid's not a good word. There are no stupid questions, especially with me. I try to give you good information. It may not be the best information, but it's the best information based on what I know at this moment in time. There are people out there much, much smarter than me, especially when it comes to money, guys. I've screwed up my whole life. I'm 53, and I don't have the kind of... Dave's got people calling in and saying, oh, I'm over 50, and I only got 100,000 in my 401k. I don't have a 401k, okay? My accountant and I are working on that. We have until April to get it all set up and funded for last year. And then we'll start working on this year. I have been playing catch up all my life when it comes to finances. The only thing that I am fortunate for is if I get Social Security, and I am 50, I'll be 54 this month, so I have 8 years to collect. That I will actually get to collect some of my Social Security. And my wife is a little older than I am, so she'll collect a little sooner. Hopefully, there's still something there for us to collect on. We'll see. I know Dave Ramsey says don't count on that. Well, too bad, Dave. I'm 53, and I'm kind of counting on it a little bit. If it's not there, it just means I may have to eat steak one night a week instead of 2. It's not what I'm totally depending on. All right, let's see what this question is. But did you stick to the percentages he recommended? Because as much as you make, I'm sure that you definitely could get steak on the percentage that he says is for groceries. No, I did not. I did not do any of the percentages he said. When I started, we were living in the RV full time. We don't have the kind of income. We didn't have the kind of expenses at the time that most living expenses that most people had. We have it's called 1,000 Trails membership, and we could go park to park 3 weeks and 3 weeks and 3 weeks, and it's free. We pay $700 a year in taxes on it, about $700 a year in taxes and fees. But we can stay every night in those type of places for free. The electric is free, the water's free, the sewer's free. So we really didn't have rent or that kind of stuff. What I did was I basically you have to understand with my business and the numbers and the size of my company, The first 0% credit card we got an offer for was $25,000. I think it might have been $30,000. 0% interest. You do have to pay transfer fee. But what I did was I took all the highest interest and put as much of it on that card as I possibly could. And it was for 18 months. So what I said was, okay, they're going to give me $30,000 for 18 months. So I want to pay it off in 15 months. So I have to pay $2,000 a month on that card to pay it off in 15 months so that I don't acquire any interest. And that's what we did. Okay. And then another card came in, and I calculated if we were going to be able to afford to make the payment so that there was no interest acquired on that card. Once I made the commitment to 15 months at $2,000 a month to pay off $30,000 worth of debt, I stuck to it. If that month I had $2,200 to pay towards debt, Lori and I went out for steak and lobster. I didn't use the $200 to pay off additional debt. That snowball effect that he talks about. Put every dollar you're supposed to eat rice and beans and never go out and, live like you have nothing. Live like no one else so that later you can live like no one else. I had built a business that paid me a good income. So I felt that we were entitled to a few things. When I was in one of the groups, I discussed the Harley because I really felt bad. I felt guilty that I had a 2018 Harley hanging on the back of the RV. It's back there hanging on the back of the RV now. With this, what most people are paying for a car. I mean, it's not a small payment on that Harley. And I felt kind of guilty. There's equity because the bike before it had equity. So I traded in a lot of equity to buy this new one. I could have sold it and gotten away from the payment. But man, I'm a biker at heart. It's hard for me to sell that thing. Even though I don't get to ride much, it's still hard for me to sell it. So I don't. I had to accept that I was not going to be gazelle intense. They call me Dave-ish, and I'm really not Dave-ish. I kind of took his concepts of paying off your debt, and I basically came up with my own plan, and I actually stuck to the plan. Not everybody can do that. It's very hard. My wife was not on board. She wasn't against it, but she was not on board because I never really discussed it with her. I just knew that we had to get rid of the debt before she really was fully retired. Although it was not fully paid off. And I took that learning experience and then applied it to the business as well. And I'm doing that exactly right now with the business. My loans are not 0%. I have an Amazon loan, but I have it set up so that I can afford to make the monthly payment. If I have an extra $1,000 that month, it goes into the savings account. I don't spend it. It goes into a savings account in case next month I'm a little short. I have a savings account to fall back on, which I really wish in the Dave Ramsey plan there was something there like that. The tires on this RV are $600 to $800 a piece, depending on where I would need a tire. Like if I blew a tire out, they're about $800 to $1,000 for them to come out to the road and change one tire. It's about $800 to $1,000 it would cost me. If it would have happened during the time I was in baby step 2, I would have been right back on a credit card. Now, I probably could have gotten a 0% credit card for 10 months, where I could afford to keep it at a 0% interest. Listen, he says use cash and you get a discount. those days are. I was in the car business for a long time. If you came in and said you were paying cash, you paid more for the car than somebody that financed it, because a dealer needs to make profit. If they can't make the profit off the price, they're going to make it off the finance. Okay? It's business. I'm not going to sit here and tell you something that's not true, and that's what happens in the car business. Yeah, you're right. Dave Ramsey has gotten a little up there. But guys, you have to understand, these two guys are extremes. They are extremes. Both plans work. If you follow both plans to the letter, they both work. If you're over 50 years old and you're starting Dave Ramsey's, you are not going to be a millionaire when you retire unless you have a very large income and you live on rice and beans and stash every freaking dollar you can find. I'm not going to live my life like that. Kobe Bryant showed us why we shouldn't live like that. He had millions of dollars and his life was cut short. It can happen to any of us. God has a plan. So I hope I got to explain it the way I really felt that this was going to work out. Dave Ramsey talks about liabilities, how you can't have any liabilities in your life. You have to get rid of all your liabilities, work on just cash, and invest that cash into your future. Robert Kiyosaki says you need to reduce your liabilities, but you need to invest, whether it is with debt or without debt. He talks about buying gold, and this is copper. I happen to like copper. Robert Kiyosaki talks about buying gold and silver and oil and those kind of things. He's not doing that on credit. He's doing that with cash. So he's reduced his expenses, and part of his income he invests in things like the gold and silver that he says he buys. Mainly what he uses loans for, or the debt, which is actually leverage, is for real estate. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. Real estate. And, unless you're freaking Jeff Bezos, who is not a billionaire in cash and liquid assets, he's a billionaire on paper. When Amazon stock went crazy the other day, they said he was making, so many millions a minute or something, but it wasn't actual cash. So even Jeff Bezos would have to go out and leverage his stock investments in Amazon, or leverage the equity in the buildings that he was buying. So I can see where that works. Am I interested in that kind of leverage? I may find a building where I can buy it just right, and I would use leverage. I'm not opposed to borrowing money. Amazon offered me, the last loan was $698,000 they offered me. And if I really wanted to grow my business, I have the opportunities, I have the know-how, I could have leveraged that loan to make more profit and money in the long term. I just feel that I'm a little old to be leveraged that heavily in my company. So I have chosen to actually get out from under the leverage and start bringing in. I'm going to actually start cashing out, meaning I'm going to start withdrawing some of the cash out of my business instead of using the leverage, I'm going to start cashing out. That's why I talk about downsizing and things like that. Does anybody have any questions? I really didn't think this was going to take me 35 minutes. I'm kind of shocked. If you see me looking around, I'm watching the dog and making sure the dog's okay. Anybody got anything? If not, I'm gonna kind of end this. I'm gonna try and do these my 2 cents. I want to tell you what I'm thinking of. God bless you too, man. You have a wonderful night, and I hope you sleep well. Listen, guys, if you are selling like I am, you honestly have to stop and start thinking about your future. Personal finance, I wish I would have thought about it when I was 40. Forget about being 20 and 30 and how many millions of dollars I could have because of the things that I did in my life. I just wish I would have started 10 years ago. But like a tree, of course, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So if you take anything away from this, if you're in the same boat that I am, or the same boat that I was in where I overspent, I lived paycheck to paycheck. I may have lived higher on the spending side because I had more income. You know, a doctor that makes $300,000 a year can still live paycheck to paycheck. If you're like me, get a hold of your finances. Get a hold of your income. Start reducing your liabilities. Listen, if you have to, cut back on going out. Lori and I, she didn't really notice it at first, but we stopped going out as much while I was doing this. Then when we started going back out, because most of the debt was paid off, when we started going back out, we both didn't like it as much. The service wasn't as good. We found out the quality of the food wasn't really as good as what we remembered it as. We actually prefer to eat at home a lot. Now, what we do enjoy doing now is eating lunch. I'm on a diet and 1 meal a day, and then I get the Slim Fast for life. That is, I choose to have lunch. I get enough energy from the bar in the morning that I make it to lunch. Lunchtime, I'm pretty active, so I'm able to I get enough energy. I have enough. I'm up doing enough things at lunchtime. I did, over 8,000 steps today, 4 miles. Internet Shopping says, did anyone really anticipate Amazon's growth for volume sellers 10 years ago, though? Hard to look back and compare then to now. No, actually, I did see it 10 years ago. I did not see that I would grow to $3 million. But I always said that I'd be $1 million seller on eBay. It took me 8.5 years to reach $1 million. I did not do the RA and the things that you see done nowadays. I did wholesale, but I did see it. And I hate to tell you, the bigger sellers will survive. The smaller sellers are going to struggle in the future. They are going towards dealing directly with brands. They actually call my suppliers, and I'm very fortunate. I have very good relationships with my suppliers, and then my suppliers are telling them, hey, you got to call this guy. He handles all our Amazon and eBay stuff. He's the seller on the platform. You got to call him and talk to him. We deal with him. I'm very, very, very lucky about that. In fact, one of them was called the other day, and as soon as he hung up the phone with Amazon, he called me to tell me that Amazon called and they asked for them to sell directly to Amazon. And what did I think about it? So you know what I told him. So with that, I'm going to end this as I always do. Listen, guys, I appreciate everybody that's here. If you're not subscribed, I lost a lot of subscribers playing with color, and I'm not done playing with color, so I need all the subscribers I can get. Subscribe to my channel. If you liked my video, give me a thumbs up. It helps the I feel like Shakira. I think that was her name. Shakira at the halftime show. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up. It helps the algorithm. If you didn't like it or you're one of my haters, leave a thumbs down. You know why? It helps the YouTube algorithm. And I found out that I appreciate my haters just as much as the people that come and watch my show, because they help the YouTube algorithm. Guys, God loves you. God bless. Get off your ass and go to work. I'll be back soon. Whoops. Wrong mouse.